This is WVTM 13. Breaking news is happening right now.
And that breaking news this morning, Joran Vandersloot, the prime suspect in the disappearance of Natalee Holloway, has pleaded guilty in federal court this morning to wire fraud and extortion.
Yeah, we knew that was going to happen all morning long. That hearing started about an hour ago at 9:30 at the federal courthouse in downtown Birmingham. We have been reporting extensively on this. We've got John Papke, who is inside the courtroom, who is able to see all of this go down. 18 years that this case has played out, and that we've been wanting to find out more answers, more details. What happened to Natalee Holloway? And we believe that we're going to be learning more of that information. We understand that the impact statements are going on right now. Beth Holloway, Natalee's mother, is speaking in the courtroom. We also heard that Joran Vandersloot also said something after he was sentenced. But we want to go to Magdala Lusant, who has been standing by outside. Tell us, Magdala, what is the atmosphere like there? I mean, this is a case that has transfixed the world at the time that it happened back in 2005.
Yes, Carla, I want to set the scene for you here. There's a lot of people, a lot of attention, national attention even. Just behind me here, you can see this group of journalists and other camera folks here to find out exactly what everyone has been wanting to know over the last 18 years. What happened to Natalee Holloway? Now, as you mentioned, John Papke is inside the courtroom and has been taking notes on what happened there. So our cameras aren't allowed inside, but at any moment, he's going to come out here and share what he heard in there. And we also have Patsy Douglas, who's in the media area where she can actually post on social media what's happening live. And through her, we've been able to hear and learn actually what was said in the courtroom. Now, Joran Vandersloot apologized to the Holloway family for lying about where Natalee Holloway's body is. Now, remember, he is pleading guilty now to these extortion and wire fraud charges. Now, these are the charges that brought him to Alabama because he tried to extort money from the Holloway family, and more specifically Beth Holloway, that is Natalee Holloway's mother, in exchange for information on where her body might be. Now, he did apologize to the family today in court, and Beth Holloway had a chance to speak to the courtroom and address Mr. Vandersloot as well, telling him and calling him a killer, but did not say he directly killed Natalee Holloway, and she asked that he be sentenced the maximum sentence. Now, also too, you may remember we're telling you this happened 18 years ago, and before all of this, Joran Vandersloot was serving time in Peru for killing another woman. And during this time, or in between that time of him serving this sentence, is when, or prior to that, years before, is where these extortion charges came through as to how people, or the how they were able to connect these charges and bring him here to Alabama to face charges for that. Now, remember though, he pled not guilty initially when he got to Alabama, so these changing his plea now caught a lot of people by surprise with wanting to share that information. Now, we did report too that he's supposed to be telling us where her body, her remains might be, and in our previous reports we're told that that will not be made known to the public with where Natalee's remains may be. And we haven't heard from Natalee's mother, Beth, either. She hasn't really spoken to local media for some time since all of this. So we're hoping to hear from her as well. A lot of people we're expecting to hear from, possibly federal attorneys who've been following this case. We're hoping to hear from the Holloway family. We know that there are podiums set here. We've seen 2 podiums set. We're not sure who is taking which podium at the moment. And we're expecting to hear more information about what happened inside the courtroom. We have our John Papke, who just had a chance to run out of the courtroom really quick and meet with us to give us details about what's happening. John's going to come in right now to brief us on what's going on. Hello, John.
Hey, Magdala, how are you doing?
Doing
yes,
good.
The hearing had lasted about, I'd say about an hour total. Judge basically threw the book at Vandersloot as part of a plea bargain. Received 20 total years in prison that he will actually serve in the Peruvian prison, where he's still serving a sentence for a murder that he committed back in 2010. Basically, in the end of things, he will not ever come back to the United States to serve time here unless he's released early on the prison sentence in Peru. So that was the ultimate sentence. He pled guilty. A lot of the details that you may have reported already, I'm not really sure, are what he revealed to the FBI through a polygraph examination about what happened to Natalee Holloway in May of 2005. Basically, he bludgeoned her to death because she refused his sexual advances, and then destroyed her remains. And that's what was revealed to the FBI, which was in then turn, that the video of that confession was played at some point for the Holloway family. During the hearing today, obviously we had a statement that was read by Beth Holloway. She stood in front of the court. I've got several notes here. I don't know how much of this you've already gone over, but several different things that she said to him, basically. And excuse me, I'm kind of getting on my bearings here. And I don't have.
We've seen on Twitter Patsy saying that she
Yes.
called him a killer.
She called him a killer, basically. Natalee, your daughter, gone home. Basically accused her of killing her and then going home and getting off on porn right after he killed her daughter, basically. And then she turned and looked directly at Joran van der Sloot in the courtroom and said, "You look like hell, Joran. I don't know how you're going to make it." Obviously in prison for the rest of his sentence. His prison sentence in Peru it runs until 2045, and so this sentence that he received today would expire in 2043. So he would not serve any of the sentence in the United States unless he was to be released early in Peru. So that's basically the outcome of the sentence itself. Now he did make a statement himself to the, and I'm so sorry, I have so many notes here.
We understand.
Yes.
Apologizing
He does
to
say,
the
yes,
family.
I would like to take this chance to apologize to the Holloway family and my own family. I hope my statement provides some sense of closure. I am not the person I was back in 2005. And then he went on to say that he had given his heart to Jesus Christ. So that was the short statement that he made in court. Every turn that he was asked a question, he was very respectful. Didn't seem snarky or trite or contrite at all in the courtroom. He was wearing, as we all know, an orange jumpsuit that he has been donning in the Shelby County Jail. He'll be immediately returned to Peru by the U.S. Marshal Service in the next few days. Of course, the judge said that would be at the earliest convenience. I don't believe it will be today, but I'm sure in the next couple of days, as soon as they can secure the proper paperwork to return him to Peru after the sentencing today.
I want to ask you, you've been covering this, 18 years. A lot of people in the Birmingham metro area have been wanting to know or at least get an end to this. For you personally, just sitting in there and watching the emotions and hearing what Joran van der Sloot had to say and what Beth Holloway had to say, can you kind of just help us understand the emotions that happened in that courtroom?
Well, the courtroom was packed, as you can imagine. I estimated about 120 people were in the courtroom. I don't know if there are any empty seats. That is the biggest courtroom in the Hugo Black Federal Courthouse on the 8th floor. In fact, the Holloway family, Dave, I believe it's Matt, is the son, and Beth were all sitting at the prosecution table. A number of other people are also there that I recognize, different attorneys and such. A lot of community members were here that knew Beth and still know Beth. They lived in Mountain Brook at the time 18 years ago. In fact, I remember first hearing about this case 18 years ago. I was actually at this courthouse covering a different trial and not realizing how long the story would not only last but haunt the community. And so today, a sense of closure not only for the community but the Holloway family, now knowing what ultimately happened to their daughter. It was a remainder mystery because Joran van der Sloot kept it a secret. So ultimately we now know that he murdered her, bludgeoned her to death. We don't know exactly how the body was disposed of, but basically the judge, in wrapping up her sentencing comments, said that he destroyed her remains. We should be able to maybe get some more information about that if there are any more details that are released in the court filings later today, hopefully.
Okay, so hopefully then we will know if there's a possibility of recovering those. I know you're saying destroy.
I believe no, I don't believe there's going to be any recovery of the remains, and there's not going to be any additional investigation. He will not be prosecuted for her murder. The statute of limitations in Aruba is actually 12 years, so those expired 6 years ago. That expired 6 years ago, so he's not going to be prosecuted for this any further. Interesting to point out is the sentencing guidelines for wire fraud and extortion under the circumstances of this case, the judge said was about 3 to 4 years. So as a part of the plea deal, van der Sloot and the prosecution agreed to up that to 240 months, which is 20 years. And the judge actually said she weighed making the sentence consecutive, not concurrent. Concurrent means when you run a sentence at the same time as another sentence. She actually considered running it consecutively. So when he gets out of his, finished serving his Peruvian sentence, he would then have to serve an additional 20 years in a U.S. federal prison. But she decided to go with the 20 years. But the upward departure from the sentencing guidelines from 3 to 4 years to 20 years was extreme, and she said based on the facts of the case and his confession that was the least she could do. She wished she could do more.
So, obviously you'll probably get these answered from the federal prosecutors, but, with working with the Peruvian government, to get him here to face these Alabama charges, how's it looking in your expertise with getting him back to serving that? Is it going to be easy?
It will be. I mean, it's just a matter of it's a diplomatic paperwork, I would guess. I mean, they knew this was coming. They gave the treaty agreement between the Peruvian government and the United States government was for 1 year. They had 1 year to prosecute him for these crimes. If the case had not been adjudicated in that 1 year, they would have to file an extension. So it's only a matter of, and they've probably already been in contact with the different authorities in Peru, and I would assume he would not still be in the United States by the end of the weekend. That's just my assumption. I've not been told that, but the judge did say as soon as possible he will be removed from Jefferson County, from Alabama, and taken back to the Peruvian prison where he'll serve the rest of his murder sentence there. For also, I understand today, for killing a woman, this is what the judge said, for killing another woman that refused his sexual advances on the actual anniversary of Natalee Holloway's death. So he killed another woman in Peru on the anniversary of Natalee Holloway's death for refusing his sexual advances. The same motive that was revealed today in court for why he killed Natalee Holloway back in May of 2005.
Was there any eye contact? Did he look at the family? Was there any remorse that you can see?
I mean, I was sitting directly behind him. I was on the fourth row. He walked in, glanced over at a myriad of people, but didn't make direct eye contact. I could sort of see where Beth was sitting. She was sitting at the prosecution table, which, if you're looking at the judge, which is to the left, like I said, at the very end of her statement, she paused and turned and looked directly at him and said, "You look like hell, Your Honor. I don't think you're going to make it in prison," basically, and then turned back and wrapped up her statement to the judge. So very powerful statement from her. And other than that, I mean, on his part, like I said, he was wearing an orange jumpsuit that he wears in the Shelby County Jail. He was in shackles, ankle shackles and handcuffs. He was very respectful, and yes ma'am, no ma'am, and beyond that, I really can't say anything more about his appearance and his demeanor in the courtroom.
And I wanted to ask this. I mean, you saying obviously yes ma'am, no ma'am, but no translator was needed in any of
No,
this.
he speaks very good English, and he made that very clear at his arraignment back in June. They offered him a translator because he's Dutch. They basically, and he turned that down. He goes, "No, my English is very good," and it was. A few biographical things, and he was asked his, state his name, and he gave his date of birth, 1987. Finished high school. Actually has a daughter himself now. That was something that the judge, and no, actually that was something that Beth Holloway highlighted. That one thing they do have in common is that they both have daughters, and obviously Beth was, her daughter's gone, and he took her life. He's admitted to that. He's confessed to that as part of this plea deal, but he has a daughter himself. She would not name the daughter, obviously out of respect for her, and just wanted him to think about what he would do in her situation, how he would feel about somebody that would murder somebody for refusing their sexual advances and bludgeoning them to death. And so
the folks who were in there, the community members who have known Beth for so long, and even Natalee, would you say that it was very quiet in there when describing how she died?
Yes, I mean, you could hear a pin drop, I guess you could say. Very, very silent in the room. When the judge walked in, I mean, everybody was in their places. It reminded me of like a big football game that people have been looking forward to. This hearing has been anticipated for more than a decade, almost 2 decades. And so when we got about 10 to 15 minutes outside of when the hearing was scheduled to start, it was silence. Of course, everybody was ordered to keep their phones turned off. And the judge or the judge's clerk came out about 10 till and said, "We're about to start. Is everybody ready to go?" And everybody said yes, and really that was it. There wasn't a lot of whispering, wasn't a lot of talking. Everybody was really prepared to get this going and to find out what, in fact, he confessed to. What did he tell the FBI? And there were several, I've read different comments, how can we trust him because he's lied before? Obviously he lied to the Holloway family attorney, John Q. Kelly, during this whole thing. In fact, John Q. Kelly's the attorney that was mentioned in the indictment. He was the one that was the go-between that he proffered to John Q. Kelly that he could lead them to her remains for this $250,000, and so he's lied before. But they said today that in addition to the polygraph examination that Yaron Vandersloot underwent, they also did some independent confirmation, very extensive investigation based on the words of Prosecutor Lloyd Peoples by the FBI to confirm and corroborate everything, or as much as they could corroborate 18 years later. And they are very confident this is the closest to the truth that the Holloway family will ever receive about what happened to their daughter.
Do you think that there's some sigh of relief that we've come to this point? Because, we were expecting this to go to trial and it would have been long. So your sense, do you think there's a sigh of relief that this is now?
Well, according to the judge, if she had rejected the guilty plea, rejected the sentencing agreement, that he would not have received 20 years in prison. Like I mentioned a minute ago, the sentencing guideline for this crime under the facts would have been 3 to 4 years in prison. So, and they also wouldn't have gotten the confession. They wouldn't have received the confession to what happened. So the guilty plea probably was the only way to go to get him the sentence he received and the confession that the Holloway family received as well.
And I have to ask you personally, you have been covering this for years, being in this market, 18 years, something that, as you said, have shook in the community. Those who live in Mountain Brook, Natalie at the time going on a high school trip with her friends and didn't come back. So for you personally, at this point, seeing what went on in the courtroom and seeing Yaron Vandersloot face to face, how do you feel at the end of today?
Well, I mean, like I've told a couple of people, I've covered a lot of cases in Jefferson County and Birmingham. Corporate fraud cases, murder cases, corruption cases. As you can see from the media, those are all media members right across the street. I've not seen that many media members here, I think, ever. Maybe the Eric Robert Rudolph guilty plea. Of course, he was the abortion clinic bomber here in Birmingham and also bombed the Olympic Park in Atlanta. But the day that Richard Scrushy was acquitted, that federal trial was in the same building. That's the trial I was covering when we found out about Natalie Holloway's disappearance. The cases don't become more profound than this one, that, like you said, shook the community. It was such a mystery for so many years, so many tips, so many misleading details and stories that people find this and they find that and they send investigators back down. So many stories we've done about, rescue crews, recovery companies that have gone down there to try to find her remains and nothing. And everybody, I believe, began to believe and think that we would never find out what happened to her, that whoever was responsible, now we know based on his confession that it was Yaron Vandersloot being responsible, would keep that a secret for the rest of their lives, take that to their grave. And he decided, I guess, to come forward and be contrite as much as he can in the confession. We hope to get more details about that confession. If anything else is released in the court record, we'll obviously obtain those and release those. But I'm trying to see what else I could add. Like you mentioned, one of the quotes that I wrote down that Beth Holloway stated says, "You are a killer, and I want you to remember that every time that cell door closes." Basically, you didn't get your sexual satisfaction from her, so you killed her.
Those are strong words,
That's
John.
what she said.
Strong words from a mother who has,
And honestly, she, okay, I'm going to have to head over there. There's a press conference with the U.S. Attorney's Office to see what they have to say. But I'll be back in just a minute.
All right. Thank you so much, John. We appreciate you. We're going to send it back to Carla and Sarah, you all in the studio, because John has to get across the street. The attorneys are coming out of the federal courthouse right now. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Magdala. Yeah, this is a day in court that has been a long time coming for the Holloway family. And we see it appears the U.S. attorneys are coming out of the courthouse. They're gathering. We know that there are two different podiums that have been set up. So we're expecting, they're starting right now. Let's listen in.
This morning. My name is Prim Escalona, and I'm the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama. I'm going to make a brief prepared statement, and then I believe that Beth Holloway will also be making a statement. Today marks the end of 18 years of wondering what happened to Natalie Holloway. Now, Beth and Dave can rest. and Natalie can rest, knowing that justice was served. For the Holloway family, this has been a journey filled with patience, perseverance, and courage as they continued to seek justice for Natalie. I hope today will give them peace. I want to extend my deepest appreciation to the FBI, the Department of Justice's Office of International Affairs, the governments of Peru, the Netherlands, and Aruba, the United States Marshals Service, and the Shelby County Sheriff's Office for their efforts that helped make today possible. I also want to recognize from my office Lloyd Peoples, Catherine Crosby, and Tanya Benninger, who worked tirelessly over the last year and a half on this case, along with many others in my office who have worked towards justice for the last 13 years. Also, I want to thank the court and the federal public defender and his team for their diligence and professionalism throughout this prosecution. Ensuring a successful prosecution took a great amount of collaboration, and I'm grateful for all of the hard work and dedication that has been devoted to this case. The world watched in 2005 as Beth and Dave Holloway experienced every parent's worst nightmare. As a mother, I cannot imagine the heartache, the sleepless nights, and the tears that Beth and her family must have shed of wondering what happened to Natalie. Despite their grief, the Holloway family kept fighting for justice for Natalie. Their love for their daughter and sister is what brought us to this day. For Beth and Dave and Matt, I hope today is not just about this sentence. I hope it's about healing, about finding peace, knowing they did everything they could for their daughter and their sister. I hope today will help all of us move forward, not in sadness, but in celebration of the incredible life that Natalie lived. Beth, may her memory be a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, today I can tell you with certainty that after 18 years, Natalie's case is solved. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. It's over. Joran Vandersloot is no longer the suspect in my daughter's murder. He is the killer. In the course of his felony prosecution, here for extortion and wire fraud indictment, he gave a proffer in which he finally confessed that he killed Natalie. He described when and how he killed her, and he said that after killing her on the beach in Aruba, he put her into the water, and that was the last that he ever saw her. That was all verified by a comprehensive and conclusive polygraph test. Even with this confession, though, he can't be tried here for Natalie's murder. But I'm satisfied knowing that he did it alone, and he disposed of her alone. I won't give you the details of his brutal confession. Those will be forthcoming when the proffer is made public. You will also have details of the plea agreement which was reached. His sentence of the extortion and the wire fraud will run concurrently with a sentence in Peru for killing Stephanie Flores. And that's fine with me. Thanks to a lot of very smart and dedicated people here, I got the answer I've been searching for the past 18 years. Joran Vandersloot's confession means we have finally reached the end of our never-ending nightmare. And for me, reaching the end of the nightmare, being over, is better than closure. It's been 18 years since Natalie disappeared, and Natalie would be 36 years old today. I still miss her every day. It's been a very long and painful journey, but we finally got the answers we've been searching for all these years. We finally, today, we got justice for Natalie. So thank you all so very much and being supportive of us in our long 18-year journey. Thank you.
Inside you said, your son said we did it. How do you sleep tonight as a mother who has what she has today?
Yeah, I think we sleep well. I mean, this has been the most unimaginable journey, and I know everyone has been with us on this, and we are so appreciative of it. But for us to finally put this to rest and being over, as I said, it's better than closure because our never-ending nightmare had to end. And we are so grateful that we can say that today, that it is over. And that is getting justice for Natalie.
He said from the podium, he's a
Do you
changed
have
man.
any indication that with his confession there will be charges in Aruba? Do you have any hope for that?
I don't. I just know that there are no charges that will be here for his murder, but hopefully maybe they will look into that.
Do you need that, or do you have what you need?
No, I have what I need, but I have what I need.
Did you
Her
believe
case
when
was
he said
solved.
that he's a changed man?
I definitely don't. I don't believe he's a changed man at all.
How did it feel to see him in the courtroom shackled in
Oh. It feels victorious. I feel like you finally begin to transition from the victim to the victor, and it begins to make the pain and suffering feel somewhat less intense because you are here. You are at this point, the pinnacle of the journey, and you've gotten justice and you've gotten the answers you've been so desperately seeking. So it felt victorious.
Are you confident you got the truth out of him?
Oh, I'm absolutely confident. Yes, yes.
That you had the opportunity to talk to Joran in the courtroom. What did you tell him?
I was able to tell Joran that I think in this long-ending nightmare, he was able to express things to him that I had been wanting to tell him, as far as, telling him who he is. And he is a killer. He is a killer. He will always be the killer. He will always be now the black mark in Aruba. He's now confessed to 2 murders. So that was good for me to be able to tell him that and to share that.
Do you hope that Aruba maybe reopen the case?
I don't know about that, but I'm just sticking with victorious right now. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about, in the courtroom, they said that you sat as he was explaining what happened. How was that moment for you?
It is shocking and it is horrific to hear a killer that describing the brutal things that he did to my daughter, Matt's sister. It's shocking and it is very disturbing. But it's things that parents have to know the truth. They have to hear the answers as to what happened in order to put this to rest and for it to be over.
Beth, did Vandersloot let you guys know if others are involved? Did he act alone?
Yes, he acted alone. Thank you all so much.
Beth, tell us about Natalie. Tell us about the 18 years before.
Natalie was very bright, very smart, dedicated young lady. She was on her way to college. She was headed to medical school after that, and I have no doubt she would have made it all the way. So we love her, we miss her very much, and we wake up every morning with thoughts of Natalie, but now we wake up knowing that we have reached justice for Natalie. So
She was truly the best sister I could have ever asked for. Absolutely.
Have you said a full and complete goodbye to Natalie at this point? Have you visited with her in your own way and let her know that you have peace with all of this?
I don't know. I don't really look at it as saying goodbye to Natalie, because we wake up every morning and the hope that filled her life and heart fills ours today. So we feel like we carry Natalie with us even forward now, and that's a very good feeling. Like I said, it feels victorious. But thank you so much.
You ready?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, good job.
All right, you are watching WVTM 13 News at midday. We are following some breaking news at this hour a day in court that I think a lot of people in this community thought that they might never see. Joran Vandersloot pleading guilty to those wire fraud and extortion charges. We were just hearing from Natalie Holloway's mother's Beth Holloway. Wow, when she said, "As far as I'm concerned, it's over. He is no longer the suspect. he is the killer. I felt that.
I know, and for her to say this is better than closure for her. She's gone from being the victim to the victor. Very powerful statement from Beth.
Yeah, a lot of things to unpack from what happened today in court. We also heard from the U.S. attorneys. We have Brett Bloomston, who is in studio with us today. He has more than 27 years of experience in federal and state court, and we want to bring you in and kind of, I mean, I think we're all just right now just so emotional hearing from Beth Holloway, because we can only imagine what it is like to be in her shoes, to have gone through this for all these years, and to finally today be able to look Joran Vandersloot in the eyes and say that you killed my daughter.
What an emotional day, and God willing, her family does get the closure, or at least feel that they're no longer the victim in this situation. It's been a very, very interesting legal journey to get to this point. And again, the purpose of today's hearing was a plea and sentencing on extortion and wire fraud charges only. However, we just heard from the Holloway family and the U.S. attorney that it turned into quite a bit more, where a public disclosure was made that he in fact killed Natalee Holloway, and the sentence, I think, is commensurate with what he deserved. We had talked before the sentencing about what his potential exposure was. Well, Judge Manasco sentenced him to the very maximum sentence that he could receive on these charges, and that sentence will run concurrent with his sentence that he's serving in Peru right now. He may never get out of jail. I understand that he is serving an additional sentence, not only for the killing of this young lady, Flores, but also for trafficking in cocaine while he was in custody. So hopefully he will never have to be back in Alabama again. I think that would provide closure to this family.
You know, Brett, one thing that we've talked about today is just every aspect of this day, from the fact that this was a plea hearing followed immediately by a sentencing, the fact that the conditions of this plea agreement, releasing the details of Natalee's disappearance, a lot of things about today, you said, so unusual, not something that we ever see.
And again, I think the U.S. Attorney's Office wanted to keep things close to the vest and not have any public input, and also protecting the family from any more publicity than they've already dealt with. But certainly an unusual path. We're used to plea agreements being public and filed in record so we could reference them to see what the facts are. And apparently in this situation, the plea agreements were sealed, or the plea agreement was sealed, and it will be disclosed along with his proffer. There was some talk about his proffer, his admissions, if you will, and I'm sure we're all very curious to read those. I have a concern about the veracity. Apparently, Ms. Holloway says that this was all verified through polygraph examination. He does have a track record of lying under oath and had lied to form the basis of these extortion charges. So I hope that there's some verification in there. Again, the family seems very confident that there has been that verification, that he is finally being truthful. And, it does nothing better for the system and for the family for Vandersloot to be sentenced to this max sentence and be sent out of the country back to Peru. And
that's what I was going to ask you about. I think we heard during John Papke's report that the judge basically says from here, he's immediately going back to Peru. So as far as any legal proceedings here in the U.S., this is a done deal.
That should be it. I don't know of any other reason why he would be held in the States. And again, as exchange for him to come to the U.S. on these charges, Peru said we want him back immediately upon completion, and this would be a completion of this matter.
And just for our viewers that maybe may not be aware, because we talked about this a little bit while we were listening into the reporting today, that this pretty much based on the laws in Aruba, he's not going to probably be charged with murder in Aruba, even with this confession or this admission there.
Yes, I'm sorry. My understanding of the Arubian law is that the statute of limitations was a short statute of limitations, I believe 12 or 14 years, but long since passed, and they wouldn't have jurisdiction to prosecute him for his admissions today. You know, a global sense of justice. He's serving a 28-year sentence for a previous murder. There's an additional 18 years, I believe, for drug trafficking while he's in custody in Peru. So I don't know that he'll ever see the light of day. And, you know, for the sake of the Holloway family, I hope he doesn't.
Talk to us a little bit about the U.S. Attorney's Office and the job they did carrying this case all the way through and how they were able to get a plea deal on the table.
Well, I remember distinctly when he was indicted in 2010, and the issue was, you know, we'll never get any justice, we'll never get any closure because he's not even in the country. But this U.S. Attorney's Office has stayed tenacious and sought his extradition after, you know, years of negotiating with the Peruvian officials. And goodness gracious, look what it did. It actually, the extortion prosecution provided a vehicle, provided a way for the Holloway family to get some closure. It did exactly what I believe Joyce Vance, our former U.S. attorney, wanted to see happen, and that was use that as a tool to get him back here and get that confession out of him. So although we're across the aisles most of the time, the U.S. Attorney's Office and my office, they did a remarkable job in getting this to fruition today.
All right, thanks so much, Brett. We appreciate you coming in here, giving us your legal expertise. What a historical day, and a day that, as we've said over and over, we never thought we would see, especially this community and how this case has impacted us.
Wow, it was definitely an incredible statement that Beth Holloway gave there outside of the steps of the courthouse. She did take some questions. I think we saw Natalie's brother was also there, you know, standing next to her. Because as Brett was talking about, you know, there are concerns about the veracity of these claims. You know, he has not been truthful in the past, but we definitely got a sense from the family that they are satisfied that what he said today in court.
You could see the smile on Beth's face and just her whole demeanor. You know, we've seen Beth so many times over the last 18 years, and I've never seen her like this. It was almost like a weight's been lifted off her shoulder.
Yes.
And you really could feel that sense of relief and that sense that she is the victor in this situation. She finally knows what happened to Natalie.
Well, we want to go back out to Magdala Lusant and John Papke, who have been, you know, following the story for us all morning long. You know, I still see, you know, the throngs of reporters out there. I imagine some people from the community as well. Can you kind of talk to us now that we have heard from not only the U.S. Attorney's Office after the hearing, as well as from Beth Holloway, what is sort of the sense that you're getting out there? Is there a kind of a communal relief now? Because this is sort of a case that has been hanging over this community for quite some time.
Well, yeah, you still see throngs of media still across the street. I haven't seen, and there were several members of the community here as well, like I mentioned earlier, that were filling the courtroom. But you could just sense it as you guys probably played the press conference live, I assume, with Beth Holloway, just how relieved she was, how at ease she was, how at peace she was. I mean, basically, after 18 years, Natalie's case is over. It's solved that Joran van der Sloot is no longer considered a suspect. He's the killer. Those were her words. And one thing that I noticed was when there was some questioning going on and somebody asked Natalie's mother, actually, Beth, do you feel that he's a changed man? Because during his statement, he said that I'm not the same person I was 18 years ago. You know, I've given my life and my heart to Christ. Natalie's brother, Matt, said, no, I don't think he's the changed man at all. He was very, very sincere about that statement.
I did hear that. That stood out to me with how he said no immediately. Yes. Like it was a hard no.
Yeah.
There were other things, John, I noticed. I know you were closer. I could only stand right here, so I was listening. Mm-hmm. There were other things that she said. You mentioning, too, that, you know, after 18 years, how calm she was. And you would expect she'd be crying in this moment. And it seems that there was no tears, but that's not a bad thing.
And I forgot to mention that earlier when I was over here. She got emotional maybe twice during her statement in the courtroom, and she held it down really, really well. I say well, I mean, under that circumstance, you've got 18 years of frustration and heartbreak building up to that moment, and the fact that I fair to guess she didn't even shed a tear, but you could tell there was emotion in her voice, strong emotion at least twice. One detail that I know you guys already heard that I wanted to reiterate and repeat was that, what happened to her body. Two investigators with a polygraph examination that he passed, he stated that after he killed her, he put her body in the water, and that's when he said that was the last time he saw her. So basically, because according to his confession, she refused his sexual advances, he bludgeoned her to death, and then put her body in the water, and that's the last he saw of her.
Something Beth Holloway mentioned today, Natalie would have been 36 years old.
Today's the birthday?
Well, no, not today, but she would have been 18 years
yes.
later. She would have been 36 years old.
And she was planning on going to medical
school. And she had no doubt that her daughter would have made it all the way through medical school. So still, you still get that sense, as a parent. I'm not a parent, you are.
Yes.
Just still how the way she describes her daughter 18 years later.
They talk and think about her daily, they said. And that Matt, her brother, basically said she was the best sister you could possibly ask for. Very bright and energetic, just the kind of a very bright spot in their family. Always, brought a smile to everybody's face, and you can see that in all the pictures. Kind of reminds me of my daughter to an extent. Okay, well, I'm not supposed to get emotional. That's kind of crazy.
That's
but anyway, no, it's so there was a lot of that, and it's almost a day of, I don't say celebration, it's a day of relief, but for this family that's been through so much for the last 18 years, they can now sleep easy. And that's what Beth said, they'll be able to sleep more easy tonight after putting this behind them.
And it helps to, talk about Natalie a little bit. So long we've been talking about Joran van der Sloot, right? Yeah. And what happened to her. But, sometimes it may get lost in who she was to her family, to those in the community, and just learning me, personally new to the market, that she was on her way to medical school after graduating high school, was just remarkable to hear from her mom, and knowing that she had no doubt that her daughter would have done well.
And just taking the traditional trip that a lot of seniors take. My son's a senior this year, and he I don't know if we're going to send him to Aruba or not, but it was an innocent trip to Aruba with a lot of classmates and everybody, but Natalie made it home. So there's a lot of people that I think are relieved today to know the truth.
And the truth came out today after 18 years, long 18 years, but not only just justice for the Holloways, but justice for those in the Birmingham metro area, those who lived in Mountain Brook 18 years ago. Maybe they've moved on or still there. It's justice for Alabama, Central Alabama.
And again, just to recap, Brett Bloomston, fine attorney that I know that was on the set just minutes ago, probably already touched base on all this, but his sentence, like we've said, is for the next 20 years, but he'll serve those 20 years in Peruvian prison, and that they will be sending him back to Peru any day now. I don't believe it's today, because it takes a little bit to get all that lined up. We expect him to be shipping back to Peru very soon, and likely will never set foot in the United States. The judge said he was not allowed to set foot in the United States without permission from the Secretary of Homeland Security, unless he had been released from prison early in Peru. Then they would make arrangements to bring him here for him to finish out his sentence, the 20-year sentence in the United States.
And I know for anybody who's just joining our newscast here at 11:14, we've been on air since about 10:30 or so, and we've had a legal expert, kind of break down how this all worked out. And I know you've been covering this for some time. Do you mind recapping, just a little bit about what you?
Okay, so we can go all the way back to 2005. Like I mentioned, she was on a senior trip. She disappeared, and for years we've all wanted to know what happened to her. Everybody assumed or thought or suspected that Joran van der Sloot had something to do with her death. He was seen with her the last night when she vanished, and then in 2010, 5 years after she disappeared, he reached out to somebody that knew the Holloway family, offered to tell them what happened to their daughter in exchange for $250,000. Someone traveled to Aruba, and some money was transferred. I think it was $25,000 was transferred to Joran van der Sloot, and all the information that he gave them was false. So they were able to then put together this wire fraud and extortion case against him in 2010, and it's kind of sat there because he was then convicted of killing a woman in Peru. So he's been in prison in Peru, and then just this year we found out that there had been an agreement with the nation of Peru to extradite him back to the United States temporarily to face those charges here, and once the case was adjudicated here, he would be sent back to Peru to finish the sentence there. So those are basically the facts of the case itself, and then we found out today as part of his plea deal, he agreed to confess to what happened to Natalee Holloway. He told the FBI, passed a polygraph test, that he bludgeoned her to death, and we now know put her body in the ocean, according to what he has said, and that's the last he saw of her. The judge gave him the ultimate maximum sentence. Each count has a maximum penalty of 20 years. Normally, in a situation like this, based on the facts of the case, he would get 2 to 3 years for wire fraud and/or extortion. He got 20 years, and he will serve those 20 years in this case concurrently, which means at the same time as his Peruvian sentence, which does not expire until 2045. So this sentence expires in 2043. So unless he's released early from his Peruvian sentence, he will serve all of this sentence in a Peruvian prison. Also, he's been asked, and I didn't mention this earlier, you guys probably already reported this, that he must pay $25,000 of restitution to the Holloway family immediately, because that's the money that they paid him as part of kind of a down payment in the extortion scheme.
With talking with some of her attorneys prior, the Holloway family's attorneys prior to today, can you just recap what you've learned over the last few days? I know you've been covering it since Monday.
So I talked to John Kelly. In fact, actually, the Today Show did a long form interview with him, but I also talked to him for a few moments on the phone in his office in New York, and he was basically confirming that yes, that there is a proffer deal. He did confess to what happened to her body. What happened to her and what happened to her body that would be revealed today. But ultimately, because of this, there would be no additional investigation. This is it, it's over. So what he said to the FBI, there will be no murder charges sought. Statute of limitations in Aruba is 12 years for murder. That expired 6 years ago, so he cannot be charged with murder, and the FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office, is not going to seek any additional charges against him for what happened to Natalee Holloway. We also learned that as well from the attorney when I was speaking with him on Monday. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to add from what I've learned from the attorney, but no, that's pretty much it. That's where we're at today. So he's going to head back to Peru, I would assume, maybe by the end of the weekend, to begin serving this sentence alongside the sentence he was already serving for murdering another woman in Peru.
Initially, it was told that we would not know, it would not be made public how she died. When those details came out in the courtroom, were you surprised to hear it?
Well, I was a little bit. I thought we were going to have to wait until later. I didn't know how much she was going to say, and I've covered dozens and dozens and dozens of guilty pleas where the victim's family stands up there and maybe points their finger at the defendant, telling him how evil they are. But I don't think I've ever covered a sentencing where we find out for the first time what happened to the victim from the victim's mother in a guilty plea like that. And I'm taking notes and I'm going, oh, okay. I mean, I thought we would find out maybe in a court filing somewhere, but she was the first one that revealed during her statement, her pre-sentencing statement, because there was the guilty plea part of the hearing and then the sentencing, and between those two, they took statements from both Vandersloot and Beth Holloway. Beth Holloway actually, during her statement, said that he bludgeoned her daughter to death because she refused his sexual advances, and then later said that after he killed her, he went back to his apartment and watched porn. And a very graphic testimony, a very graphic statement, an emotional statement from Beth Holloway in the hearing.
And in these cases where it's a sentencing, you often hear from the judge and they offer their personal opinions. Were there anything that you were able to jot down that this federal judge might have said to him?
I bought this clipboard and legal pad and pen just for this hearing, Magdala, so I did take as many notes as I could. Basically, lots of things. She said she wishes she could given him more prison time, that she wishes she could have stacked the 20 years that she was sentencing him to today on top of the 20 years that he was serving in Peru. But since that was agreed upon by the family, that was fine. That they would not use this confession, the prosecution wouldn't to seek any additional charges. But she also said, your extortion and fraud were heinous, because you knew the information you provided was a lie. And she felt that the guidelines, like I mentioned, that were 3 to 4 years based on the facts of this case, would have been woefully inadequate of a sentence to give him. And that's why she did not hesitate to give him the statutory maximum, which is 20 years for these 2 charges. Again, stating that 2045 is when he's scheduled to be released from Peruvian prison. So more likely he would serve all of this sentence in the Peruvian prison, like we've mentioned a couple of times.
And I'll ask you.
That's pretty much everything I wrote down from what she said.
Okay, and and I do want to ask this too, and for any of our viewers who's just coming into our newscast and seeing us talk about this, he apologized to the family, but then he also apologized, according to the tweets that Patsy was pushing out, he apologized even for lying back then about where her remains were, correct?
Yeah, what I wrote down is that I would like to take this chance to apologize to the Holloway family and to my own family. I hope my statement provides some sense of closure. I'm not the person I was. I have given my heart to Jesus Christ. Now, I'm not a court reporter, so I can't take notes as fast as somebody can speak. I do the best I can. That's what I wrote down. And it was very short. Probably took maybe less than a minute for him to say all that. But that's what I wrote down from what he said, that he is not the person he was 18 years ago, and that he hoped that his statement, not only today, but I guess his confession to the FBI, provides the Holloway family some sense of closure.
Yes, and we've heard that from Beth Holloway today, that they have closure today, and
and she's fine with it.
She
said she was fine with the result of the case and the sentence that he received.
Thank you so much, John. You have provided us great detail on both sides running back in. John was the first reporter.
You're a good interviewer, Magdalene.
Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, I didn't run out this time. I have a history of running out of the courthouse, but I was the first one to walk out.
Yes, he was the first one out of the courthouse to get over here to get that information to us and to you at home. And we're going to be live throughout the newscast as well, but I do want to send it back to Carla and Sarah, who are back in the studio.
All right, thanks so much, Magdalene. John, what a day for the Holloway family, for this entire community. After 18 years, we finally know what happened to Natalee Holloway. We're going to have much more coverage on Joran Vandersloot's guilty plea, as well as the confession he made in the death and disappearance of Natalee Holloway. That's all coming up here on the other side of the break on WVTM 13 News at midday.